Yeehaw! Welcome. I'm not going to do that. I forgot that you're editing this one. I don't want to give you that blackmail material.
It's going in.
Yeah, no, please. Welcome to Adamantly Analog, episode 44. I'm your host, Corey Murphy.
Hey, and I'm your other host, Harrison Dunn.
Harrison Dunn. How has it been?
You know, it has been a week. It's been a week.
Yes, really? I'm assuming that at the time that this episode is releasing, it's 75 degrees and warm in this state, and we forgot what snow was like.
That sounds right. Yep. You're fresh back from Louisiana, and you brought that warm Southern air with you.
Yep. I didn't leave any kids behind, and I still have my job.
Let's hope this episode ages well.
Oh God! What have you been playing?
You know, I haven't been playing a whole lot because I'm making new games, but I have played a very, very old game recently that I wanted to talk about. Give a little chat here, a little talk through.
Okay.
So, as you know, one of the guys at our game night, or as you don't know, one of the guys at our game night absolutely loves Reiner Knizia. Just has a bunch of Reiner Knizia games.
Who does?
And his bag's usually got a couple in them. Yeah, his name's Kane. Loves Reiner Knizia. He brought a 2002 Reiner Knizia game called Dragonland.
Oh,
and I'm bringing this up because Gamelin actually did like a republishing of it in 2020. So it's not actually that hard to find and get a hold of a copy right now. But this is a roll and move game by Reiner Knizia. Yep. That's what it says. So you are wizards trying to collect gems and dragon eggs to score by the end of the game. But it's roll and move done like not terribly. So you roll these 2 dice, which the game refers to as destiny cubes. And then you move 2 of your 3 pawns on this map. The map is this fantasy landscape with a bunch of rock spaces that you move along, some rivers, and then a whole bunch of volcanoes. And that's where all of the gems and the dragon eggs are. And you're trying to get your different wizards to different locations to pick up the matching color gem. The other crazy thing this game does is that you don't play as a player color, you play as a shape. So everyone gets a red pawn, a green pawn, and a blue pawn, but you get them in a certain shape. So like you could be the pawn that looks like an actual chess pawn, and I could be the pawn that looks like a toy baby bottle. Like they're kind of just wacky and it's weird. And then the color of your pawn determines what kind of gems you can pick up. And by the end of the game, you're trying to collect sets. So every set of blue, green, red, and egg that you collect is worth 10 points. But you lose all gems of a certain color if that corresponding wizard hasn't gotten a ring. The game also comes with these little rubber band rings, basically, that you slide over your pawn when you power it up.
Oh, I was going to say you have to wear them pretty princess style.
Yeah, it's a super just weird kind of artifact of the times. And when I heard that it was reprinted in 2020 by Gamelin, no less, the Tiny Epic publishers, I was like, this is kind of weird. This is a weird game. And I played it, and I was right. It's a weird game. But it's got a lot of nostalgia for some folks. It was really cool to see a Reiner Knizia game from 2002, and kind of just he was even doing the things that he's known for doing all the way back then, which is kind of cool to see interesting choices around rolling like a pair of dice and how are you going to spend them. It was just kind of neat. Yeah. So Dragonland. I don't know that you need to go rush out and buy a copy right now, but it was kind of a weird, cool thing. I'm glad I played it. Would I play it again? You'd have to ask me to find out.
It depends on the day.
Yeah.
Hey, it looks interesting. And are there screens so that you don't know what kind of loot other players have picked up?
Yes. Yeah, you have player screens. Yeah.
Sometimes those games that have the they kind of play on the really common, like I've used in the past, Milton Bradley-esque mechanics and tropes.
Mm-hmm.
When the right designer gets their hands on them, it can be really interesting how you can take them for a turn you wouldn't expect, and they end up being very gamery all of a sudden.
Right.
I kind of felt that way with Luxor when that was taught to me last month, and I was like, "Really, that's what you do in this game?" But the more I played, I was like, "Okay, this is really clever." And there's lots of thought-provoking decisions to make and risks to take, and kind of push your luck in certain ways. And
Mhm.
yeah, it was neat. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, there are definitely some signs of the times things with Dragonland, and it looks like the reprint was pretty faithful, so I don't know if they went and, like, quote, unquote, "fixed or changed things," but yeah,
Mm,
it was neat.
yep. Cool. All right. So we're gonna jump on to our feature topic today, which
Whoa,
our feature
Corey,
topic.
I'm sorry. I gotta interrupt you here because
What?
I got some breaking news for you, okay?
What?
Last week
This just in?
this just in last week. We gotta follow up on this because you made some bold claim about, like, zombie Agricola last week. I did research. Well, I'm not gonna tell you how much research I did. I did research, and it's true. There is Awaken Realms is doing an Agricola a Dead Harvest that it looks like it is a full reimagining of the base game of Agricola, like a standalone experience with
Mm,
miniatures, I think.
yeah, it's not clear yet.
It's a thing. BGG says slated for 2027, and there is a game found page saying that the campaign is going to go live in 2026. For frame of reference, we are recording this episode in March of 2025. So this is a ways off.
Yeah.
Even though the game is like so far away, 2 years away plus, guess what its BGG rating is?
Well, it's getting review bombed.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess there's some drama about I don't know if it's the zombies thing, the rumors of AI art being used in the promotional images. I did, like I said, didn't do that much research, but the fact that it exists and we're talking about it, I think that's pretty special. Because Zombie Agricola, what's that about?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is AI art on the cover. It has that kind of feel to it, but it looks really cool. It's like a farmer like shooting zombies off of his giant tractor. It's pretty. I at least have to know what's happening here in this game because I can't even imagine. You asked me last week if you are the zombie or if the zombies are attacking. I can only imagine from this image that the zombies are attacking. And not only are you trying to survive by feeding your workers, you're also trying to not die from zombie invasion.
Yeah, that's kind of the feel that I'm getting from it. Say that's a striking concept for sure. I'm very looking forward
Yeah.
to seeing how this all shakes out. Awaken Realms, Uwe Rosenberg, you keep doing what you're doing. Go on.
Well, thank you for clarifying. Yeah, this may be the first Uwe Rosenberg zombie game.
That's a thing. Yep.
Yeah, he's tackled a lot of things. Okay, anyway, I think it's time to move on to the feature topic
Yes,
now.
yes, yes.
Okay. Well, we didn't really mention what we're talking about yet on this episode, and
No.
we're going to continue the trend of talking about derivatives or evolutions of different gaming concepts. We have now done deck builders, we have done worker placement, so naturally, next comes drafting. And we're going to talk about how the ideas of drafting can be iterated upon and have been iterated upon in 3 games each. Harrison, what was your first exposure to drafting in board gaming or card gaming for that matter?
You.
Me.
Yeah, you were. I'm pretty sure it was you. And I thought we were playing Seven Wonders, but maybe I'm getting confused with things.
Um,
But I mean, it's probably Seven Wonders, right? Like pick a card, pass a card.
yeah, I've had that game for a long time.
Yeah, it's probably Seven Wonders. Might be Sushi Go, though I know Sushi Go came after. It's
Mhm.
probably Seven Wonders.
Yeah, it's a classic. I still like playing Seven Wonders.
It's so good. You can play 7 players fairly easily. You just gotta have a table
Yeah.
that's big enough to sit 7 people around it. That's usually the thing that gets in the way more often than not.
Yeah. I always want to play that game with my family, but as we've talked about in the past, rules teach is a little clunky for Seven Wonders. It's surprisingly so. It's not as gateway as you may think it is.
Yep, yeah, I got lots of icons. I've fumbled more than one teach on this one for sure.
Yeah, lots of icons and lots of like little corner case things. You're like, oh yeah, and also you can get a free upgrade if you have this card,
Oh
or
yeah,
how the military works, and lots of things that are pretty obvious to people that are deep in the hobby of gaming. But introducing Dad to this didn't go so well.
hey, be nice to your dad. He's pretty cool.
He's cool. He's also pretty smart, but he doesn't always have the patience for this stuff. I think that's the thing. It's the
Yeah,
patience.
yep. Well, we got a topic, but we still need to decide who goes first. And I know typically it's your turn to ask a question, but I got so overzealous in making up show notes that I just kind of oops, and I did this one already. So following our trend of like, hey, let's ask Wikipedia what the first game to use this mechanic was. And guess what?
Oh, okay.
Wikipedia dropped the ball big time. If you try looking up drafting or card drafting in Wikipedia, I couldn't do it. It was pretty hard. I kept on coming up with the concept of draft card burning. You know, when you're dodging the draft by burning your draft card.
Oh,
So that was a little bit of a historical rabbit hole. So instead, I dug into BGG and I looked for drafting mechanics and I sorted by release date and then kind of went from there, did a little searching around, and I came up with some things that are close. And, you know, even if you don't get this question right, at least we'll have learned something, right? That's cool.
yeah.
So the question, according to the general consensus, which game first used card drafting as a core game mechanic? Seven Wonders, Citadels, Fairy Tale, or Magic the Gathering?
Okay, now I don't know how to answer this about Magic the Gathering because the game came out in like 1993, but when did drafting first appear in it? Does that matter in this
Mhm.
case, or is it
Yeah.
the release of the game?
Which game first used card drafting as a core game mechanic?
Oh, first. So that to me means the first time people were drafting Magic cards, not the release of Magic.
Okay,
Is that right?
sure. Interpret it as you want. I'm
Jeez, okay. Well, all right. In that case, I'm gonna say Citadels. I think Citadels was something like 2005. I don't know what Fairy Tale is, but that's probably the answer then.
okay.
But my answer is Citadels.
Okay. All right. So Citadels came out in 2000. Fairy Tale came out in 2004. Seven Wonders came out in 2010. And Magic the Gathering came out in 1993, like you said, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a three-way tie here, right? Magic the Gathering, 1993. From records that I found, drafting packs of Magic the Gathering existed before the game was even published. The creators and developers were doing that behind the scenes before the game was released,
Really? Okay.
which I think is really cool. Right? So that stems from the idea of poker, a poker game called Pass the Trash, where you would basically draft a poker hand. You would get a hand of 7 cards, and then you would pass 5 of them, then you'd pass 4, then you'd pass 3, etc., until you had a hand, and then you'd reveal your poker hand. So it was like kind of a similar subject there, and they were doing that with Magic cards.
That's kind of cool, actually. I've never thought of playing poker like that. That would be fun.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
So then Citadels is the next up in line in 2000, and that's the Bruno Faiduti social, not social deduction, but really
A little bit.
kind of ish, yeah. So you draft a single hand around the table, and the first player has all the information. They get to pick their identity card, and then everyone else is down the road has a little bit less information, and then you play around with that information.
Mhm.
So that was like kind of a drafting mechanic.
Yeah, for sure.
But between everything listed, Fairy Tale is really considered like the first traditional card drafting game where you're picking cards of hands and simultaneously picking things face down in 2004. All three of those are kind of the right answer. So I don't, yeah, like I said, I went down a rabbit hole on this one, and I don't actually care who goes first or who got it right, because it was just cool. And I wanted to share this information with everyone. So
Yeah, that was great.
yeah, you got it right. Good job, Citadels.
I forgot about Citadels. I have that game and I don't play it very often. It feels really mean, but that is a unique drafting element. That one belongs on this list somewhere, so I'm glad we're talking about it.
Yeah.
You're drafting those roles, and some roles cancel other roles out, and that's where people play it for the first time and are like, okay, I'm done with this game. So it just gets put on our shelf for a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, anyways, I'm gonna share my first pick, which is not Citadels. This one is drafting in the sense that you are picking a card out of choices presented to you, yet it is definitely an iteration on drafting, and that is Biblios. Okay, I need to give some context here. You know when you play Magic the Gathering, you're playing like a 2-player version of a draft, and you have to come up with something clever so you're not just passing hands back and forth to one another? What's it called when you put the 3 cards face down in piles and you have choices to either take the card from the pile or pass that pile and add another card to it? Is that Winchester or Rochester?
Oh, shoot. I was going to say Winston. So
Winston. It's Winston.
it is.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, so there's like all sorts of different drafts that players will try in Magic, right? Different styles of just making choices. Do I want this? Do I want to pass on it? Biblios is that, and I think this is actually a draft concept that you might try to apply it to Magic the Gathering. It might work. But basically what's happening is every player is passing around this common deck of cards, and on your turn, you are going to make one selection for yourself. You are going to put down one selection face down for every other player, I'm sorry, I lied. Let me say that again. You're going to make one selection for yourself. You're going to put one selection face up for every other player, and you're going to put one selection face down into a pile that's going to be bidded on at the end of the game. And so you have to do one of each of those things. So once you make the choice of the card you're going to keep, you can't do that anymore. So it's kind of like push your luck a little bit. And you also have to kind of like mitigate and say, okay, well, I know that this one is something someone else is going after. So I can't put that one face up. It can go in the bidding pile and sort of just make decisions based on the information that everyone's sharing with each other about what they're giving up.
Right.
I think that's the important part about drafting.
The big part that you missed there too is you only get to look at one card at a time.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So you can be playing a 4 or a 3-player game and you have to look at 4 cards total. You only look at them one at a time. So if the first card you pick up is something you really want and you give it to yourself, and then an even better card comes up after that, you're gonna hosed.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and there's like a lot of kind of cool little unique bits about this game, but the general idea is that at the end of the game, once you've drafted all these cards and bid on the stack of face down cards, everything that you have is put into piles of colors, and you compare who has the highest value in each colored suit. And that player is going to win the points that are present in that suit. So end scores in this game are like 6, but it really just comes down to knowing what the total value of those suits are and thinking, okay, I think I've got enough to win that. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Biblios is a sweet game and hard to find, yet you can get For the King and Me, which is the re-implementation of the game by Yellow. So that is Biblios from Yellow.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I like that one. I didn't like it the first time I played it, and I think it was a little. The person who was teaching it was like a huge Biblios fan and just totally crushed us with it. And I don't think they're the greatest teach, but that's okay. But I want to try this again now that we've been talking about it. Now that I've grown, I've matured. It sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of Biblios diehards out there because of Mark Basada, who is one of the hosts of the Board Game Barrage podcast. He consistently
okay.
puts this in his top 5, and the other hosts always give him crap about it. But it is it's kind of a grail game for some for that reason. But of course, like I said, you can get a $15 copy of For the King and Me on Amazon. It's functionally exactly the same game.
Maybe I'll check that out at some point. Cool. All right. Well, my number 1 pick is also light and comes in a small box, but it is not anywhere near as complex. It is quite simple. This is Draftosaurus from 2019, published by Ankama. Draftosaurus is a token drafting game. The game is just a bag of dinosaur meeples in different colors. They're bright, they're cute, and they fit in the palm of your hand. Each turn, you're just going to pick one of those guys secretly and then put it in your park. The park is where your like the real decision making comes from this, because each pen in your park, I think there's 6 or 7 pens based on which side of the map you play, scores in a different way. So I like this one not only because it's just super quick and easy to teach to people, but also it kind of subverts the like, we have to draft cards. Like, let's draft things that do things and have the text on them. This is little bits of wood that got no text on them, and you're drafting that. And then the rules and the text come from where you place them. So it's kind of like decoupling that, drafting the object from the thing that it does, which I think is pretty cool. You've played this one, right, Corey?
Yeah, we played it. We just grabbed it off the shelf at our board game cafe and learned it in 5 minutes and got a game finished in 10 minutes.
Yep.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Very simple.
It's great. Yeah. It's on Board Game Arena, and there's you play both sides of the map back to back, and then you do your combined score as your final score. And that's supported on BGA, which is really nice, and that makes it just a hair longer. It goes like 20 minutes then. But it kind of like gives you a better chance at like recouping a bad game and learning how your other players draft, and also like checking out 5-6 new scoring conditions too, which is pretty cool. Yeah,
Nice.
highly recommend checking this one out. It should be pretty easy to find too. It's fairly light.
Yeah,
it's a good one.
Now, I just have to say, though, you introduced this game by saying it's not as complex as Biblios, but I just want to set the record straight. Biblios is a pretty simple game to learn. This game is just an extremely simple game to learn. Okay. Both of them are light.
But Biblios has a lot of implications to the things, and there's a lot more room for skill expression and growth in Biblios, where Draftosaurus is just like, pick a dinosaur, put it in a spot, and it's a T-Rex.
Right. Yeah, I mean, but they're both 5-minute teaches, so you can get them off the ground quickly.
Yeah. That is my first pick, Draftosaurus.
Okay, for my second pick, I was waffling about this slot for a while, and I'm like, if we're talking about the evolution of drafting, I have to include Azul because even though it's like the most target accessible game that I could include in this list, it really is like it just like boils the mechanic down into the most simplistic version of it. And of course, when you think of drafting, you think of drafting cards, and there's a lot of card drafting, or in this case, some dinosaur drafting. But for Azul, you're drafting these little starburst tiles off of factory tiles in the middle of the board. And the game is about like finding patterns and scoring by placing tiles next to one another, taking risks in some cases. If you have to hit a certain threshold of different colored tiles in order to actually place them in your board. But the drafting part of it is the heart and soul of the game. And I think the best and worst part about Azul is the meanness that can be that can take place when you get someone stuck with tiles that they can't place. And so you're always paying attention to the other boards at the table and thinking, okay, when it comes down to it, I'm probably going to take this color. They're probably going to take that color. All right, then if I take that color, they're going to get stuck with 3 black tiles that they can't place, and they're going to lose a whole bunch of points when they fall. And that's the best part about this game. I like it. I know others are like not cool with that.
I don't like mean games. I don't like take bad games, generally speaking. But I didn't really like Azul until I understood that layer of it.
Yeah.
That like understanding, okay, no, actually I should be thinking 3 or 4 draft picks ahead to make sure that I'm not the one who winds up with a bunch of broken tiles, right?
Right.
And that made me understand drafting at a whole new level. And I really like Azul for that.
Yeah, I think a big part of drafting and going back to Magic, if Magic truly is the beginning of the drafting, is like you're taking cards that fit your plan. But in Magic, if you only do that and you pass up on the cards that are really good for the plan that the other person is likely to be doing, then you're going to lose, because sometimes luck doesn't favor you and you don't see cards that are better for you than they are, good for your opponent, for example.
Right.
And so there's that, what we call hate drafting in Magic. In Azul, this is kind of taken to a whole new level. And I think that element of hate drafting is kind of essential and core part of this game. So again, that is Azul 2017 from Next Move Games and Plan B Games.
All right, my second pick is one that can go up to 8 players and actually requires at least 4 players, and that is going to be Etten from WizKids in 2020. Now, I've talked about this one once on the podcast before because I got it and played it for the first time recently, but this is a 2-headed giant drafting game. That is, you are playing in pairs, drafting to battle other pairs of 2-headed giants. And so there's a lot going on in this game. It is big and unwieldy, and the teach was a bit of a slog. I got to work on that. That's on me. But effectively, you play as a kingdom who is joined with another kingdom, and one round of drafting, you are going to be drafting from a shared deck amongst the table to you're drafting against your neighbor. So you're picking something, then I'm picking twice, and then you're picking. And then on opposite rounds, you are drafting with your ally. And those cards are actually drawn from a personal deck. So I draw, I think it's 2 or 3 of my personal cards, and you draw 2 or 3 of your personal cards. And then the draft for that is actually just a negotiation. Be like, hey, I think this card would be really good for you. Oh, I really need this one. Neither of us needs this, so let's sell it for some gold. It's technically still a draft, right? Because you're trying to make sure that you both get the best of what you need. And then the whole thing just plays out in this wild, escalating series of combats between your different sides of your allyship. It's weird, it's bizarre, it feels a little clunky, but it does so many cool new things. And it's an 8-player team drafting game, which I don't think any other game can say that it does.
This was really cool. You've talked about this before?
Yeah, I think I have.
All right, I don't remember it, but what a neat idea.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is like, hey, next time we do a draft with John, let's bring this along and do this afterwards, provided my basement doesn't flood.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's not hard to find, I think. I don't think it did very well. I got it at Noble Knight for like $20 or something used. It's just a super cool, neat thing. Or if you see me somewhere out in the wild, be like, "Hey, let's play it," and I'll be like, "Okay, let's find some friends. Let's do it."
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
For whatever reason, games that have like specific player counts in mind, they struggle to catch on, and it's sad because
well, unless they're Captain Sonar.
well, yeah, but that's the example I'm making as one that's struggling to catch on. You don't see it played that often. I know a lot of people like it, but it's hard to get it done if you're not at a convention. You have exactly 8
True.
players committed to it because yeah, you can do it like 3 and 3, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
And then wasn't there something like Deal with the Devil? Have you seen that? The CGE game? It's like a
Yeah.
4-player only game.
Yep, exactly 4 players, yeah.
Looks really cool. Never seen anyone play it.
Yeah, I've seen it on, clearance shelves at conventions now because no one's buying it, but it just seems super crazy.
Yeah. Now this Etten game, I imagine it's 2, 4, 6, or 8 players, right?
No, you can play odd players.
Oh,
There's
okay.
an AI deck that you can use to simulate an extra player for someone. I don't
Oh,
remember exactly how it works, but
yeah.
you wanna play it with even numbers.
That would explain when you look at the recommendations on BGG, 1, 2, and 3 players, 100% not recommended. 4 players, 100% recommended. 5 players, 100% not recommended. Yep.
Cool. That is my number 2 pick, Etten from WizKids.
All right. My number 3 pick is a dice drafting game, and that is Twice as Clever from Schmidt Games. And we have talked about Twice as Clever before. This is one of my favorite roll and write style games. It's a nice little, I don't know, 20-minute game, I suppose. You are rolling 6 different colored dice, and individually you are drafting dice 3 times on your turn. You're only drafting against the choices you have in front of you. The risk reward system is once you draft a die, and typically you want a higher value for most of the scoring conditions, you're going to take that die and also eliminate any die with lesser from the pool. So if you take a 6 in the first round, you're locking up all 5 other dice in most cases, so that your second and third round are kind of worthless unless you use a power up to unlock them. Once that stuff is all done, all of the dice that have been eliminated are put into what's called a platter. It's really just a cardboard box.
With a silver platter painted on it.
Yeah, right. The other players have a chance to pick one of those dice to use on their sheet. And so then, you pass the dice around, everyone takes a turn. You play 4, 5, or 6 rounds, depending on the player counts, and you score up a whole bunch of different mini games that pertain to each of the different color dice. And they're all cool things. Like the pink one is just, write the value of the pink die in there. Higher values are better, right? There's certain boxes that you can hit. If you reach a threshold of points in those boxes, you get the associated power up. Sometimes that power up is adding another value die to another column, and you can choose that value. So you're setting off all these combos and things that go off ding, 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 ding across the board. So I won't go into all of the different mini games, but they're all different, either multiplying values together or trying to keep higher or keep getting lower values from the one that you previously drafted. A lot of fun, kind of a bizarre, abstract game, sort of themeless and a little clunky to teach, but a really cool take on drafting.
Yeah, and I think last time we talked about this one, you mentioned it's got a great app implementation too. You like playing this one
Yeah.
on your phone?
Yep. Yep.
Despite your giant endorsement, I still have not bought that. So,
Oh, the app.
yeah.
Oh my God, it's like $2.
I know. At $2 for a mobile game, that's crazy.
Yeah. Cool. So that is Twice as Clever from Schmidt Games.
All right, my final pick of the day here. This is a one versus many drafting game. So some of you probably already know what this is just by that description. This was from 2023, Beast from Studio Midhall. Beast is a game that when I first heard of it, I was like, oh my gosh, that's just a wild concept. That sounds incredible. It is a hidden movement one versus many card drafting game. So think like Scotland Yard, Fury of Dracula thing. One player is a mythical beast or some monster, and everyone else is the monster hunter or the monster hunters. But you're drafting from the same set of cards. So one player is picking cards and then passing that same hand of cards to the monster to draft from.
Mm.
I've only played this game once. I'll just say that there. So apologies to any Beast fans out there that I'm getting some details wrong here. But one player is going to be passing cards to the Beast. And that being in that hot seat, knowing like, oh my God, I really need this card, but I cannot give this monster the ability to kill all these people or do these bad things.
Mm.
And I think it is each card can be used in either way, by either side. So it's not necessarily like if I pick the beast card, I'm screwing myself over. It was just like a super weird and different take on it, and it really made you pay attention to that like signaling stuff in a typical drafting game, because you're really aware of what card the beast is you're passing the beast, or what card you're getting from the beast. Oh, he didn't take this like super scary attack thing. What is he going to do? That sort of idea. So I think the core box comes with a couple different beasts that you play as. They have their own boards and their own mechanics. It feels a lot like almost like Root in that way, that there's like a huge level of asymmetry
Hmm.
based on which beast is going on. It's a little clunky sometimes, but it was just a cool experience. Have you heard of this one, or have you played this one, Corey?
I've seen it. It's kind of a striking box art. It's very
Right,
epic looking, and the board presence is kind of, or the table presence is something to stop and be like, what are you guys playing?
right.
No, I've never played it. I didn't realize it was a drafting game even. That's cool.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. So I think it's the kind of game that rewards like the same group playing it multiple times. The
Yeah.
beasts are pretty in depth. The rules are pretty nuanced. The first time that we played it, the teacher just forgot like a major part of the beast rules, and it was pretty one-sided affair.
No.
But you could see what was in there. Like you could see what was happening, what this game was trying to do, and it was a neat thing. So for like just to take on a drafting game where one player values the cards and what they do completely different from the rest of the table, is like, that's a neat twist on a draft. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, I would love to work on something like that at some point.
That's very cool.
Yeah. So that is my third pick, Beast.
Yeah. Well, as we reach the end of the list here, I'm thinking there are games I wanted to include on here that don't have drafting as like a main like core game supported mechanic, but are offered as like a variant on them. But those are the types of games that I would never play without drafting. And a couple come to mind. I wanted to mention. I think like these are games that would certainly be on this list if we could stretch the rules a little bit. But like Terraforming Mars is one. I mean, Terraforming Mars without the drafting, but it's elevated to a whole new level and made longer with drafting. But another one that comes to mind is Res Arcana, and I've talked about Res Arcana on the
Hmm.
podcast before, and that's a really cool game where you're just playing with this 8-card deck and doing so much with it. There's some fun in just being dealt 8 random cards and trying to figure out how they work together. But because all of the cards have so much impact on your game, finding these strategies and synergies between different interactions is like what makes the game amazing. And that can be really fun when you're drafting too. So in both of those cases, building a tableau, building an engine, and having control, at what point in the game are you having access to these cards, because you actually can decide which ones you're going to get when you draft.
That's I think I've done that with Seasons before, drafted
Yeah.
before playing that. And it's a really cool experience, but then also the first time you do it, you finish drafting and you realize that like you forgot completely one piece that the game needs to function, and now your starting setup can't do that one thing,
Oh yeah.
which can be pretty funny the first time you do it. Less so in a longer game like Seasons, but I imagine in Res Arcana it would be an interesting experience.
Yep. All right, but our real lists are, I picked Biblios, Azul, and Twice as Clever, and Harrison picked Draftosaurus, Etten, and Beast.
That's an okay list, Corey, but I don't think you put a deck building worker placement drafting game on there.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, we forgot that. Uh-uh.
Yeah, I guess none of those are really that, are they?
You hear that, world? Make one.
I was thinking about adding Blood Rage. I think it's about as close as you can get. I
Yeah,
don't know if
yeah,
that
okay.
qualifies.
Like, sure, why not?
Or Twa. Does Twa do it? It's not really a deck builder, but Harrison, it's time for the outro. What are you playing, watching, doing outside of board games these days?
You know what? I've been doing some things. One, and this isn't on the show notes. I'm just kind of ambushing you with it because that's how my brain works.
Oh,
Uh, no, Lauren and I went to go see a local theater production of Cabaret recently, and let me tell you, that's a good show and super timely too, because like it's all about that politics, and
mm,
it takes place in Germany right before the Nazis came into power. It got some good things to say there. But
Okay.
I have been listening to all 3 Cabaret cast recording albums available on Spotify, and I cannot decide which is my favorite right now. Like, you got the 1983, oh gosh, I'm gonna remember that. The original with Liza Minnelli in it as Sally Bowles. There's some real charm there. But then you get to the 1998 one with Alan Cumming as the MC, and it starts to just get really funny. They get a lot more banter in between, like at the start of the songs. And then you get to the modern one, the 2021, with Eddie Redmayne
Oh
as
yeah.
the MC. And man, the energy in the 2021 cast is just out of this world. It is crazy. It is big. It is bombastic. The Jessie Buckley plays the Sally Bowles, and she's just like rowdy and in your face. And just even in the cast recording,
Hmm.
you just get this huge amount of energy, and it's great. Anyway, I am loving that. Every single song's a banger. Listen to Cabaret. And if you're not into show tunes, we're rewatching Extraordinary Attorney Woo on Netflix. That's the K drama about a woman with autism who gets into criminal law defense in Korea, and it's very charming. Like, it's
Huh.
so good that we're rewatching it. And for a K drama, it's only 16 episodes, which is not long compared to like the standard minimum 20 that you get with most other shows.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Nice.
so I'm
It's got
consuming all the feel good stuff like that
good. Rotten Tomatoes 100% right now.
on Extraordinary Attorney Woo.
Yeah.
Hmm. Well,
Nice.
yeah, go get some woo in your life.
Ready to be wooed. I'm sure that's been said in some headlines at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that about takes us to the end here. And before we go, I have to say it. Follow us, subscribe, like, comment, do the things to let us know you're out there. It keeps us going here. We are on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on Amazon Music, we're on any of your favorite podcast players. And if we're not, then send us an email, adamantlyanalog@gmail.com, to request that we find your favorite podcast player. It's really not hard to do. We just don't know they exist at this point. But thanks for listening, and goodbye.
Bye, everyone. Adamantly Analog is Corey Murphy and Harrison Dunn. Original music and bumpers by Corey Murphy. To learn more, reach out to us at adamantlyanalog@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.